All hope was lost as the Pakled homeworld burned under ruthless Dominion bombardment, until the humans arrived. The primitive Pakleds were hopelessly outmatched by the technologically advanced Dominion ships that shattered their feeble planetary defenses after a brief, futile resistance. Smoke billowed from the ruins of shattered cities as the enemy fleets pounded the surface without mercy. In a blood-soaked trench, Oren, a young Pakled soldier, lay grievously wounded, his unit massacred around him. Through pain-blurred eyes, he watched in helpless despair as Dominion troops rounded up weeping Pakled elders and children and systematically executed them. The monsters were exterminating his entire species. Oren's vision darkened as he felt the lifeblood leaking out from his wounds. Suddenly, a fleet of strange, unidentified ships dropped out of hyperspace, immediately engaging the Dominion armada in a fierce space battle. The Dominion ships swiveled to face this unexpected new threat, their orbital bombardment ceasing as they maneuvered to counterattack. Who were these mysterious newcomers? It was the humans of the Terran Expeditionary Force. They had heard the Pakleds' desperate distress calls begging for aid. Despite being embroiled in their own far-flung intergalactic war and spread perilously thin, the humans had detoured their battered fleet to answer the Pakleds' plea, compelled by an unshakable moral imperative to help the innocent. On the bridge of the human flagship, Captain Benjamin Evans assessed the grim tactical situation. The human fleet was badly outnumbered and outgunned, and the Dominion now held a strong orbital position. The odds of victory were utterly bleak. Yet Captain Evans knew they must prevail at any cost. If the Dominion seized the Pakled homeworld, they would gain an invaluable strategic foothold to directly threaten multiple human colony worlds. Billions of human lives would be at risk. This could not be allowed to happen. The Dominion must be stopped here and now. With a heavy heart, Captain Evans coolly gave the order to attack. Immediately, squadrons of advanced human strike fighters launched, piloted by skilled volunteers ready to sacrifice everything for this desperate mission. The nimble ships darted through the Dominion formations, drawing fire and sowing chaos. The calm of space lit up with silent explosions as the Dominion point defenses struck down several fighters. But many more broke through, slamming crippling volleys into Dominion capital ships before streaking away. The way was open for the human fleet to press the attack. Concentrating firepower on the Dominion's command and control ships, the humans advanced into punishing range, their vessels shuddering under brutal enemy fire. Geysers of flame erupted from shattered hulls, and the vacuum greedily swallowed screams and shattered bodies. But now the Dominion line was crumbling, their coordination faltering. It was time to land the knockout blow. As drop pods laden with power-armored human infantry plummeted down into the planet's atmosphere, all trailing fire like meteors, Captain Evans watched the hellscape of the orbital battle unfold on his monitors, face etched with anguish, yet jaws set with grim resolve. He had done all he could. Whether this gambit succeeded or failed, whether the Pakleds survived or perished, whether the human ground troops would overcome impossible odds or be slaughtered, was now out of his hands. The responsibility passed now to the valiant warriors diving into the fires of battle below. With a silent prayer, Captain Evans stared into the raging inferno that had become the Pakled sky, desperately hoping beyond hope that he had not just doomed the brave soldiers under his command to certain death in a hopeless endeavor, for the Dominion would not yield their prize without a brutal, bloody fight to the bitter end. This war was far from over. The dropships punched through the turbulent, smoke-choked atmosphere, anti-aircraft fire streaking past the viewports. Inside the lead craft, Sergeant Marcus Hawkins focused his mind as the ship shuddered violently. This was his 11th combat drop, but you never got used to it. Dominion had air superiority, and their LZ was hot as hell. But there was no choice. The Pakleds needed boots on the ground now, or they were finished. 30 seconds, the pilot yelled over the comm. You heard him, ladies. Look sharp, Hawkins barked to his power-armored Marines, his voice booming over the roar of the engines. He slapped a fresh magazine into his rifle. Our job is to kick the Dominion the hell off this rock and send them crying back to their mamas. Ura? Aura! His squad chorused as the dropship screamed towards the ruined cityscape below. The ship flared, reverse thrusters firing as it dropped into the rubble-strewn courtyard of what had once been the pack-led Capitol building. The ramps slammed down and Hawkins was moving, rifle up, scanning for targets. His Marines fanned out behind him in trained unison, securing the landing zone. The rest of the dropships disgorged their troops, and soon the courtyard was swarming with human soldiers establishing a perimeter. Gunfire crackled in the distance. Artillery rumbled. The acrid stench of burnt metal and flesh hung in the air. Hawkins linked up with his company commander, a bull of a man named Captain Romero, his dark skin shining with sweat. "What's our sitrep, Cap? Looks like the Dominion threw one hell of a party down here." Romero grunted. "Sentry drones show heavy enemy armor 4 clicks west. Pockets of Dominion infantry scattered throughout the city. Too much interference for reliable comms with command, so we're largely fighting blind down here." "The flyboys can sort out the bigger picture," said Hawkins. "Down in the mud is where we grunts earn our pay. Speaking of which, where do you need us?" Romero consulted his wrist computer. "Until we get better intel, fan your squads out and—" "Contact rear!" a Marine shouted. Rifles swung up as a lone figure staggered out from the shattered buildings at the LZ's edge, his torn and stained uniform marking him as Pack-led. Hawkins' finger tightened on his trigger. Could be a Dominion plant. But as the figure stumbled closer, Hawkins saw it was a young Pack-led, barely out of his teens, his uniform charred and bloodied. The kid was in bad shape. "Medic!" Hawkins bellowed. The Pack-led collapsed to his knees, mumbling something in his native tongue as the company medic rushed over and started working on him. Hawkins knelt beside the wounded Pack-led. "Easy, kid. You're safe now. What's your name?" "Orin!" the Pack-led gasped out, clawing at Hawkins' armored gauntlet with surprising strength. You must help." "Just relax, soldier. Let the doc do his job. We'll sort out the rest." "No!" Orin cried. "No time! The shelters! Dominion butchers!" He broke into a coughing fit, flecks of blood speckling his lips. Hawkins leaned in close, heart pounding. This sounded bad, real bad. "What shelters?" he pressed. "What about the Dominion? Talk to me, Orin." Orin sucked in a rattling breath and pointed westward with a trembling hand, his eyes fever bright. "Women, children, they hide in shelters. But Dominion found them. They kill everyone. Command post, 4 clicks west. They control all forces from there." His hand dropped as he fought for air. "Please, you must save." The medic jabbed a hypospray into Orin's neck, and his words trailed off as the painkillers and sedatives took hold. Hawkins rose, meeting Romero's eyes over Orin's now unconscious form. "Cap, you get all that?" Romero nodded darkly. "Yeah, and it sounds like we've got no time to waste. I'm calling it in." As Romero stepped aside, hand to his helmet comm, Hawkins gestured to the medic. "Get him stable for evac ASAP." His eyes cut to his sergeants. "Cooper, Zai, Osiro, rally your squads and get ready to move. The Dominion is about to have the worst day of their miserable lives." The sergeants rushed to obey as Romero jogged back over. "Just got off the horn with Evans. He's got a plan, but it's risky as all hell. We go in 2 prongs. One team assaults the command post, the other secures the shelters. We're talking speed and violence of action, shock and awe." Hawkins hefted his rifle. "What about the Pack-led defenders still fighting in the city?" "Evans has dispatched birds to try and link up with any holdouts, give them fire support. But right now, this is on us. We move fast, hit hard, and hopefully the Dominion crumbles." Hawkins turned to his Marines, his voice booming. "You heard the captain. We came here to save the Pack-led people. Well, it don't get more direct than this. The Dominion thinks they can butcher civilians, slaughter the innocent. Not on my watch, not on Terran soil. We're going to show these bastards what it means to fight humans." As his Marines cheered, Hawkins felt a cold rage crystallize inside him. The Dominion had gone too far. It was time to end them. Under the gray, debris-strewn sky, the human forces split into two teams and pushed out. The rescue team fighting their way towards the shelters against fanatical Dominion resistance, the stealth team infiltrating ruthlessly towards the command post, and the Dominion leaders orchestrating this extermination. Above them, contrails streaked across the sky as the battle raged in orbit, the outgunned human fleet unleashing its cutting-edge drone weapons in a desperate bid to shatter the Dominion armada. And all across the Pakled homeworld, the fate of two species and an entire galaxy hung in the balance as the titanic struggle built to a crescendo. There would be no surrender, no mercy, no quarter, only total victory or utter defeat. For the soldiers on the ground, locked in the blood and sweat and savagery of close combat, there was only the mission, only the battle, only the next target. This was where training and instinct took over, where warriors were forged and legends born in the crucible of war. Sergeant Marcus Hawkins was right where he belonged, at the tip of the spear, leading his Marines into hell. He didn't know if they would triumph or die, didn't know what the future held. He only knew one thing. Come what may, this was humanity's fight now, and he would see it through to the bitter end. Captain Evans' voice crackled over the comms. Rodriguez, you're up. Get down there and grab everything you can. Clock's ticking. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez nodded to his strike team. Lock and load. We move fast. We hit hard. The transport bay doors slid open with a hiss. Rodriguez and his team leapt out, boots hitting the rubble-strewn ground of what was once the Dominion command post. Smoke hung thick in the air, acrid and choking. Fan out! Secure the perimeter! Rodriguez barked. His soldiers moved with practiced precision, sweeping the area for hostiles. A burst of plasma fire erupted from a collapsed doorway. Private Chen went down, screaming. Contact front! Corporal Wu shouted, returning fire. The team dove for cover as more Dominion troops poured from the ruins. Rodriguez gritted his teeth. Push through! We need those data cores! They fought their way deeper into the complex, room by room, corridor by corridor. Blood and circuitry mingled on the floor. Finally, they reached the central data hub. Plant charges! Blow the security doors! Rodriguez ordered. The explosives detonated with a thunderous roar, and they surged inside. Banks of alien computers lined the walls, blinking and humming. Grab everything, Rodriguez commanded. I want every scrap of intel these bastards have. His team worked feverishly, yanking out data cores and scooping up strange artifacts. Time was running out. Meanwhile, across the war-torn city, Sergeant Hawkins surveyed the battered defenses around the civilian shelter. Pack-led refugees huddled inside, terrified. Incoming! A Marine shouted. Hawkins looked up to see a wave of Dominion troops charging their position. All units, open fire! Hawkins roared, the air filled with the staccato thunder of human weapons and the high-pitched whine of Dominion energy guns. Marines fell left and right as Dominion fire tore through their ranks, but still they held, pouring lead and plasma into the enemy. Hawkins' radio crackled. It was Captain Evans. Sergeant, we're bugging out. Fleet can't hold much longer. You need to dig in and hold that position until reinforcements arrive. Hawkins swore. Understood, sir. We'll hold as long as we can. He turned to see Oren stumbling towards him, clutching a rifle. The young Packled's eyes were filled with desperate grit. I fight with you, Oren said simply. Hawkins nodded. Glad to have you. Now let's show these Dominion bastards what happens when they mess with humans and Packleds. A deafening roar filled the sky. Hawkins looked up to see the human ships retreating. All except one. Captain Evans's flagship hung in low orbit, engines flaring as it evaded Dominion fire. Suddenly, an enormous Dominion dreadnought emerged from the debris field, weapons blazing. Evans's ship shuddered under the assault. On the bridge, klaxons blared. Shields failing, the tactical officer shouted. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. Evans gripped his chair. Divert all power to forward shields. We hold the line until our people are clear. The dreadnought's guns pounded Evans's ship relentlessly. Life support failed. The bridge filled with smoke. Just as all seemed lost, space lit up with new energy signatures. The human reinforcements had arrived. Their massed fire caught the dreadnought in a devastating crossfire. The massive Dominion ship tried to retreat, but it was too late. Its reactor went critical, consuming the behemoth in a silent fireball. On the ground, the Dominion assault faltered as their troops realized they'd lost orbital support. Hawkins seized the moment. "Push them back," he roared, leading a charge that sent the enemy fleeing. As the dust settled, Orin approached Hawkins. The Packled's eyes shone with awe and gratitude. "You saved us," Orin said simply. "Humans are more than we knew." Hawkins clasped the alien's shoulder. "We're in this together now, friend, and we've only just begun to fight." The acrid smell of burnt electronics and ozone hung heavy in the air as Captain Evans surveyed the ruined Packlet capital from his command post. Debris-choked streets stretched out before him, buildings reduced to skeletal husks by the Dominion's relentless bombardment. But amid the destruction, a new sense of purpose blossomed. "Status report!" Evans barked into his comms. "Sir, Major Briggs's battalion has touched down and is moving to reinforce Sergeant Hawkins' position," his aide replied crisply. "They're establishing a fortified perimeter around the civilian shelters as we speak." Evans nodded grimly. "Good. Those civilians are our top priority. What about Rodriguez?" "Still combing through the intel from the command post, sir. Says he's found something big." As if on cue, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez's voice crackled over the channel. "Captain, you need to see this. Now!" Minutes later, Evans stared in disbelief at the schematics displayed on Rodriguez's holotable. "A planet killer," he breathed. "Those bastards were going to glass the entire world." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "And potentially other human colonies too. This changes everything, sir." Evans' face hardened. "Indeed it does. We need to find that weapons facility. Now." He turned to his staff. "I want every available resource redirected to locating that complex. Work with the Pack-led survivors. They'll know their world better than we ever could." As his people scrambled to obey, Evans sought out Orin. The young Pack-led's eyes were haunted, but a spark of hope remained. "Orin, we need your help. The Dominion built a weapons facility somewhere in the mountains. Any idea where they might have hidden it?" Orin's brow furrowed in concentration. "There is. Old mining complex. Deep in Carthac range. Dominion took it when they first came. No one allowed near." It wasn't much, but it was a start. Within hours, human recon teams had pinpointed the facility's location. Evans wasted no time in mobilizing a strike force under Lieutenant Hansen's command. Hansen's convoy of armored vehicles rumbled across the war-torn landscape, kicking up clouds of dust as they made for the distant mountains. The young lieutenant's voice crackled over the comms. "All units, stay frosty. We're entering hostile territory." They didn't have to wait long for contact. A Dominion hardpoint erupted from a camouflaged bunker, energy weapons lashing out at the lead vehicles. "Contact front!" Hansen bellowed. "Return fire!" The human vehicles screeched to a halt, swiveling their turrets to face the threat. The air filled with the thunder of human artillery as they hammered the Dominion position. Hansen gritted his teeth as plasma bolts splashed against his vehicle's armor. "Push through," he ordered. "Don't let up." The humans advanced relentlessly, weathering blistering fire as they pounded the Dominion defenses into rubble. One by one, the alien fortifications fell silent. As they neared the weapons complex itself, resistance stiffened. Dominion troops swarmed from concealed bunkers, their energy weapons cutting down several human soldiers caught in the open. Hansen's voice rang out over the din of battle. "Armor, concentrate fire on those bunkers. Infantry, follow me in." The lieutenant led the charge, his powered armor shrugging off hits that would have vaporized an unprotected human. They fought their way through successive defensive lines, leaving a trail of Dominion corpses in their wake. Finally, they breached the outer perimeter of the weapons facility itself. Hansen and his team fought their way inside, engaging in brutal room-to-room combat. Suddenly, alarms began to blare throughout the complex. A computerized voice droned in an alien language. "Sir," one of Hansen's techs shouted, "they've initiated the launch sequence for the planet killer." Hansen's blood ran cold. "We need to reach that control room now." They raced through twisting corridors, battling fanatic Dominion troops every step of the way. Hansen's armor was scarred and blackened, his men bloodied but unbowed. At last, they reached the launch control center. Dominion shock troops poured fire into the doorway, keeping the humans pinned. "Cover me!" Hansen roared. He charged through the hail of energy bolts, his armor smoking as it absorbed hit after hit. With a final burst of speed, he reached the control panel. Warnings flashed on alien screens as the countdown ticked away. Hansen's fingers flew over the unfamiliar controls, desperately trying to abort the launch. With seconds to spare, he found the right combination. The alarms fell silent, the screens going dark. Hansen sagged against the console, exhausted but triumphant. "Launch, aborted," he panted into his comms. As the last pockets of Dominion resistance were mopped up, the full magnitude of their victory began to sink in. They had saved not just the Pac-led homeworld, but countless other planets from the Dominion's insane plot. Back at the command post, Orin approached Captain Evans, his eyes wide with awe. You saved us all," the young Pac-led said softly. Evans clasped Orin's shoulder. "We did what had to be done. But this fight is not nearly finished. The Dominion won't take this lying down." Orin nodded, a fierce light kindling in his eyes. "Then we will fight them, together." As Evans looked out over the battered but unbroken city, he knew the young Pac-led spoke for his entire race. Against impossible odds, humans and Pac-leds had forged an unbreakable bond. Whatever storms lay ahead, they would weather them as one. The acrid stench of burning flesh and melted metal filled the air as Captain Evans watched the last remnants of Pac-led civilization crumble under the relentless barrage of antimatter warheads. He stood rigid, eyes hardened, as fireballs bloomed across the horizon, each detonation a hammer blow to his conscience. "Sir, the last of our ground forces are aboard. We're ready to withdraw," his XO reported, voice tight with barely suppressed emotion. Evans nodded curtly. "Give the order. All ships, break orbit immediately." As the human fleet accelerated away from the dying world, Evans found himself face to face with Orin. The young Pac-led's eyes burned with a mixture of grief and betrayal. "Why?" Orin croaked, his voice raw from screaming. "We fought together. We trusted you." Evans met Orin's gaze unflinchingly. "I'm sorry, Orin, but the Dominion left us no choice. Your world was lost the moment they set foot on it." Orin lunged forward, hands clawing for Evans's throat. Marine guards restrained him as he howled in anguish. "Murderer! Betrayer! We should have let the Dominion kill us all!" Evans turned away, unable to bear the sight of Orin's pain. He strode to the bridge, where Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez waited with a grim expression. "Sir, I've completed my analysis of the Dominion data cores," Rodriguez reported. "It's worse than we feared." Evans studied the holographic display, his face hardening as he absorbed the horrifying scope of the Dominion's plans. Hundreds of warships, each more powerful than anything humanity had ever encountered, were already en route to key human systems. "And the traitors?" Evans asked, his voice cold. Rodriguez nodded grimly. "We've identified several high-ranking officers who've been feeding intel to the enemy. It explains how they've always been one step ahead of us." Evans' fists clenched at his sides. "Compile a list. We'll deal with them once we reach safe harbor." As the fleet pushed deeper into space, the magnitude of their situation settled over the crew like a suffocating blanket. They had won a Pyrrhic victory at best, and now faced an enemy of unprecedented power. In his quarters, Evans pored over tactical readouts, searching desperately for some advantage, some weakness they could exploit. The screams of dying Pac-leds echoed in his mind, a constant reminder of the price of failure. A priority message flashed across his screen. New Dominion signatures had been detected, closing fast on their position. The true test was about to begin. Evans keyed the ship-wide comm. All hands. Battle stations. This is not a drill. We are about to engage a superior Dominion force. Remember what we're fighting for. Remember the Pakleds. Today, we hold the line for all of humanity. As klaxons blared and crew members raced to their posts, Evans strode onto the bridge. The vast emptiness of space loomed before them, soon to be filled with the fury of battle. "Weapons hot," Evans ordered, his voice steady despite the weight crushing down on him. "Prepare to engage the enemy."
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.